In today's video, we're comparing two different Telecasters at each end of the price spectrum. I'm going to take my very own Fender American Original 50s Telecaster and put it up against a somewhat budget guitar, being the Squier Classic Vibe 50s Tele. Now, this particular Tele is made in Indonesia, so this is my first time playing one of those. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give my thoughts about both. Both are fantastic guitars. I'm a massive advocate for the Squier Classic Vibe. I actually owned one when I played over in Florida a few years back, and it was awesome. The best straight off the shelf guitar I bought in a very long time at that particular price. And surprisingly, it's pretty hard to hear the difference. So what we're going to do in this video is to check it out in a backing track, and then we'll also hear some isolated tones. So anytime in this particular video you see one or the other guitar, the rhythm part is also that guitar. Let's get into it. Firstly, a massive thank you to Sky Music for the loan of the Squier Classic Vibe. It's already back at the shop as of shooting this part, but great guitar. And I might be asked, is there a huge difference between the Indonesian made one and the Chinese made one? And I think the only difference that I personally noticed is that this one didn't feel as heavy as my made in China one. Other than that, I think the only other difference is the neck doesn't feel quite as sticky. Now you've heard the video in the context of music, let's go over to some isolated tones. Before we get into the playability, let's talk a little bit about tone. So the first thing that I noticed between them both is that they're not that dissimilar to each other, which was kind of surprising. I thought my guitar was going to wipe the floor with the Classic Vibe. Some would argue that the Squier Classic Vibe probably sounded better in some of the lead parts, and I might agree with that depending on your particular taste. So interesting results there. Goes to show you that the pickups they're putting in the Squier Classic Vibe are still really good, and I think, at least in my opinion, it held its own with my Fender. Now, there's one thing to take note of though. In post, I had to boost up the Classic Vibe 1 dB to make it comparable to my guitar, which was surprising. So it's not quite as loud in the output, but still got plenty of output. So don't worry about that. It's not like they're cheap pickups or anything like that. You get good tones out of each of these guitars. The Fender just had a little bit more of a rounder sound to it to my ear, especially in the isolated tones. Now let's talk a little bit about feel, because this is something that's also subjective depending on what you like, but I gotta tell you, I love the Fender American Original 50s Tele. The neck on it is huge and it feels great in the hand. So for what I like, it's not even close. Now, that doesn't mean that the Squier plays badly because it's got a thinner neck. It actually still plays great. It just feels very different in the hand and it doesn't quite feel as premium. So there are some sacrifices to some extent when you buy a mid-range guitar like the Squier over, say, something like an American Original or an American Professional 2. You don't get a hard case, you know, the attention to detail is a lot better on the more expensive guitars, and the pickups just are a little bit more, they have a little bit more oomph. And I noticed this going between Epiphone and Gibson, for example. Some will argue the opposite, but that's something that I've generally noticed. The more you spend on a guitar, the pickups are slightly better. Again though, can you hear a difference in the mix? Because that's what matters most. Most people will nitpick when they hear something up against each other isolated. If you're playing to music, which is the idea of playing a guitar, or at least creating music, then you probably won't hear a difference. Would I recommend a Squier Classic Vibe for their price, even though they have gone up globally? Absolutely, I would have no hesitations buying one when I travel again. It's just a great travel guitar and it's something that I could play out live, and I've done that with both of mine over the years. So overall, I think they're both great guitars. Tone-wise, very similar. Feel-wise, a little bit different. Price-wise, extremely different. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.